It was my sister Emily's idea to visit the old Bramwell Hospital. She loves creepy abandoned places and is constantly dragging me along to go explore them. I always get nervous, but tag along anyway to keep her out of trouble. This time, we got a lot more than we bargained for. We drove out to the crumbling hospital on a gray, overcast day. The building loomed over us, 10 stories high with rows of broken windows like eyes watching our every move. Just walking through the front door made my skin crawl. The lobby was trashed, old papers and leaves blowing across the cracked tile floors. We carefully made our way through the corridors, taking photos and jumping at every creak and groan. That's when we heard a loud crash ahead. We looked at each other in alarm before Emily grinned and ran towards it. I reluctantly followed, calling for her to wait up. The whole hallway was blocked by fallen ceiling tiles and planks of wood. It looked like a straight-up demolition crew had come through. Emily just giggled and started climbing over the debris. Once we crossed the mess, we found ourselves in what used to be the patient wing. Room after room lined the hall, all in decaying states of disarray. The crash must have come from one of them. Emily eagerly looked in each one while I lingered behind, uneasy. The air felt heavy, like we were being watched. I was beginning to think we should leave when I noticed dripping on the floor. I stared at the red puddle growing larger and followed the drips to the room ahead. "Emily," I gasped. She stood frozen, staring at the bloody message scrawled on the wall. "Get out." All I remember after that is running. We never went back to Bramwell again. I still get chills when I think about the strange encounter I had at the library a few years ago. I used to go there almost every day after work to return books, browse for new reads, and enjoy the quiet atmosphere. But one night, things took a very creepy turn. It was a Tuesday evening around 8 p.m. The library had just closed, but I was able to sneak in the back entrance that didn't lock properly. I perused the stacks on the second floor for about an hour and then decided to head home. As I was walking down the deserted staircase, I heard loud crashing sounds coming from downstairs, like heavy bookshelves falling over. I froze, listening closely. Then I heard a blood-curdling scream that turned my blood cold. It sounded like a woman being murdered. I crept down the remaining stairs and peeked around the corner. In the dark aisle, I could make out a tall, shadowy figure, hunched over and rummaging through a pile of books strewn all over the floor. I gasped when the figure suddenly looked up at me. All I could see were blazing red eyes and a mouth full of sharp, gnarly teeth locked in a spine-chilling grin. Paralyzed by fear, I watched as the creature turned back to the books and continued tearing pages out violently, all while letting out deep, evil laughter. My legs unfroze and I ran out of there faster than I've ever run before. I didn't look back until I was a block away, terrified that the thing was chasing me. To this day, I have no idea what that demonic being was, but I'll never set foot in that library again. The bone-chilling image of those malevolent red eyes is forever burned into my mind.
Last fall, I decided to study late one night at the huge university library downtown. I was cramming for a big exam I had the next day and lost track of time. Around midnight, I realized I was the only person left in the giant, silent building. Unnerved, I quickly gathered my things and headed for the exit. As I passed by the rows of tall, looming bookshelves, I heard a strange clicking noise coming from the section behind me. I paused, straining to listen closely. It sounded like someone tapping long fingernails against the wooden shelves. But that would be impossible. I was alone, wasn't I? My heart pounded as I continued forward. The tapping noise stopped momentarily until I heard it again, this time closer, behind me. Increasing my pace, I turned the corner into the main lobby. Suddenly, all the lights went out, plunging me into blackness. Blindly groping my way across the lobby, I felt hot breath on the back of my neck. I spun around with a gasp, but no one was there. Finally, I made it to the exit and escaped the pitch-black building, my terrified footsteps echoing down the empty sidewalk. Ever since that night, I refuse to stay at the library when it's close to closing time. I can't shake the feeling that something sinister was lurking in the shadows, toying with me as I tried to escape.
Ever since I was a child, I've had a fear of dolls, especially porcelain antique ones with realistic human features and eyes that seem to follow you around the room. My grandmother had an extensive, creepy collection of them displayed around her old Victorian-style house. When she passed away recently, I reluctantly helped clean out her home, and that's when I came across her prized possession, a very old, large porcelain doll with luxurious long hair, dressed in lace and sateen. My grandmother adored that doll, but I always thought it looked sinister with its piercing blue eyes. While cleaning, I accidentally knocked the doll off the table and its wrist cracked. I felt terrible, but hoped no one would notice the damage. I carefully stood the doll back up and continued working. Later that night, as I was getting ready for bed in the guest room, I thought I heard faint giggling. I assumed my mind was just playing tricks on me. As I pulled back the blankets and climbed into bed, I got a sudden chill down my spine. Then suddenly, loud crashing sounds rang out from the other room. I apprehensively walked down the hall following the noise. In the dim light, I could see the porcelain doll standing in the middle of the living room, surrounded by broken glass and scattered family photos. It was impossible. How could she have gotten there and done this by herself? As I got closer, the doll slowly creaked her head around towards me, her eyes glowing menacingly. I gasped in horror and staggered back. Then I blinked, and in an instant she was gone. The next day I told my family what happened, but no one believed me. They assumed I'd just knocked things over while sleepwalking. But I know what I saw. That doll is alive and she's angry I broke her. I'll never step foot in that house again. I just hope she doesn't follow me home.